The Muslim Brotherhood is a transnational Sunni organisation set up in 1928 by Hasan al-Banna. It is having a huge influence in Wales. Ed Husain explains its origin.
And I'll say this, Constantine, that the best way to approach the Muslim Brotherhood is to see it as an ideology. Mm-hmm. So if we talk about something called the MBI, Muslim Brotherhood ideology, and then we're onto something, then we're fighting the true battle of ideas. Just saying we're going to shut down their bank accounts, although helpful, is really putting a band-aid, as they say here in America, or a plaster back home in England, with the bleeding problem that the Muslim Brotherhood have sought to create across the world.
And just coming back to the ideological inspirations of it, I mean, the issue of the caliphate, I think, is something that's worth exploring, because the caliphate effectively it's kind of been explained to us by four other guests in the past that the central fight within the Muslim world is between the people who believe in nation states and the people who don't want nation states. They want the entire area of the Middle East and perhaps elsewhere to be controlled by one theocratic worldview. And that's essentially the main theme that's driving these people. Is that right?
Correct. And it's correct because if you take away the argument for creating what they call an Islamic state, then you end up in accepting the status quo, modernity, multiple nation states, and working within these sovereign jurisdictions where you have the rule of law, as the late great Roger Scruton used to put it, the rule of law has jurisdiction, and that jurisdiction is the nation state. That's why some of us have reservations about something called international law. Well, who's going to enforce it? So that's the way of the modern world. Now, those who believe in the Islamic State believe ultimately in creating some kind of Islamist empire. And while they call it an Islamic state, what they mean is their state, their interpretation of Sharia, their form of law, and they or their allocated leaders are in charge for this supranational state, and it's a confrontational state. It's an expansionist state. So it's much like, say, I don't know, the Soviet Union, or at its heyday, the Ottoman Empire. The Chinese weren't really expansionist in those days, but so the question is, what is a caliphate, or what is an Islamic state? Right? So the hallmark of their understanding of the Islamic state is that it must have one leader, and it must have frontiers and not borders. In other words,
what's the difference?
Frontiers are temporary and they can expand. They go and...
How convenient.
So they don't believe in borders or nation states. So the whole world at some point must come under the control of this caliphate or of this Islamic state.
The whole world, or just the areas that have been historically populated and controlled by Muslims?
The first priority is to reconquer Spain, Sicily, India, parts of China that were once Muslim. But you don't ultimately stop there. You continue to expand to bring the whole domain under what they call, the domain of peace, or the domain of Islam. Now, here's the problem with this worldview. This is a worldview that was advocated first and foremost by Hasan al-Banna, the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood in the 1920s, and it's then spread on to Hamas and al-Qaeda and others. But the problem with that worldview is the problem that Hasan al-Banna found in the 1920s, that most Muslims rejected him and reject the Brotherhood. And if you read classical Islamic literature, there is no reference to the Islamic system. This was taken from Hegelian thought. This was taken from later German Nazi thought, that we must create a system, we must create a Reich, we must be against the Jews, we must be against the West, we must reconquer land. This was the mood music of the 1920s and 30s that the Muslim Brotherhood embraces, absorbs, and continues to protect. There was a very, very high-level prominent Muslim scholar called Ali Abdul-Raziq in 1926, wrote a book called Islam and Governance. And in it, he very, in detailed fashion, drawing on Muslim jurisprudence for 1400 years, says there is no system of governance within Muslim cultures, plural. And we know that when the Prophet Muhammad passed away, he doesn't allocate a particular caliph. He doesn't say there's going to be a caliphate. He doesn't say you must all be united under this one ruler, because even in his time, there were Muslims living in Abyssinia. There were Muslims who were living in Mecca. And subsequent to him, there was an Umayyad Caliphate out of Damascus, and there was another caliphate out of Mecca. And even in the days of the Muslim Brotherhood, when they were founded, there were Muslims living in Indonesia, in Morocco, that did not come under Ottoman or Turkish rule. So the argument is nothing other than propaganda. The argument is nothing other than their theorizing of creating a 1,000-year Reich, or in their context, a 1,000-year caliphate, to try and control the rest of us. And if I may just say one other thing, their biggest enemies are not the Israelis. The biggest enemies are not really the Western countries. It's fellow Muslims, because it's other Muslims that opposed them. And they went, and as we will go through some of the subsequent decades, they assassinated Egyptian prime ministers, Egyptian judges, and then they go and assassinate Jordanian politicians, Saudi politicians, and Al-Qaeda, as we've seen, leads that assassination culture into this great city here, New York, and 9/11 was a result of that. So, their enemies, yes, ultimately become the West and ultimately what they call the small Satan Israel, but it's really ordinary Muslims that oppose them and reject them. And the best evidence for that is, we have 2 billion Muslims roughly. The Muslim Brotherhood's membership maximum, if we include its global following, is probably no more than 5 million, and I'm being very generous. So it's a small, I think it was Gramsci who said an organized minority can control a disorganized majority. So that's where we are. It's a very organized, coherent minority.
One of the major influences on Muslim Brotherhood ideology is Yusuf Al-Qaradawi. Qaradawi has particular views regarding Jews.
يبذلون من أموالهم على شح اليهود القرآن يقول أم لهم نصيب من الملك فإذا لا يؤتون الناس نقيرا أبخل الناس وأحرصهم على الحياة ولكن مع هذا بيبذلوا أرواحهم ويبذلوا أموالهم.
In 2003, Qaradawi published his book, a Fatwa on Palestine. In the book, he commented on a hadith that is also in the Hamas Charter.
The last day will not come unless you fight Jews. A Jew will hide himself behind stones and trees will say, O servant of Allah, O Muslim, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him.
Qaradawi describes this hadith as one of the miracles of our Prophet and then explains.
We believe that the battle between us and the Jews is coming. Such a battle is not driven by nationalistic causes or patriotic belonging. It is rather driven by religious incentives. This battle is not going to happen between Arabs and Zionists, or between Jews and Palestinians, or between Jews or anybody else. It is between Muslims and Jews, as is clearly stated in the hadith. This battle will occur between the collective body of Muslims and the collective body of Jews, that is, all Muslims and all Jews.
He further explains.
The Palestinians do not have the competence to decide on the fate of Jerusalem without resorting to the Muslims all over the world. This consequently makes it obligatory upon every Muslim, wherever he is, to defend Jerusalem and Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is an obligation upon all Muslims to participate in defending Jerusalem with their souls, money, and all that they possess. Otherwise, a punishment from Allah shall descend on the whole nation.
In July 2000, Ehud Barak, Prime Minister of Israel, and Yasser Arafat, an Egyptian and leader of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, met at the Camp David summit, ostensibly to agree a peace deal.
Can we have seconds?
Mr. President, how is it going, Mr. President?
Shake hand,
How long
please.
is it going to take, Mr. President? We pledged to each other we would answer no questions and offer no comments. So I have to set a good example. If you reach an agreement, you're difficult to resist, but I will make it today at least.
Is that the only agreement you have reached so far?
That would be answering a question.
Can you talk about the mood?
Thank you.
Can you talk
Check hand, please.
No deal was made. Bill Clinton explains.
Look, I worked on this hard. And the only time Yasser Arafat didn't tell me the truth was when he promised me he was going to accept the peace deal that we had worked out, which would have given the Palestinians a state on 96% of the West Bank and 4% of Israel, and they got to choose where the 4% of Israel was.
The collapse of the talks was perhaps unsurprising. In the Hamas Charter, it states,
"There is no solution for the Palestinian question except through jihad. Initiatives, proposals, and international conferences are all a waste of time and vain endeavors. The Palestinian people know better than to consent to having their future rights and fate toyed with."
The collapse of the talks was followed by the second intifada that involved Palestinian civilians becoming suicide bombers. Al-Qaradawi was supportive of suicide bombers.
إذا الجماعة رأت أنها في حاجة إلى من يفجر نفسه في الآخرين ويعني يكون هذا أمرا مطلوبا وتدبر الجماعة كيف يفعل هذا بأقل الخسائر الممكنة وإذا استطاع أن ينجو بنفسه فليفعل إنما لا يترك هذا للأفراد وحدهم.
The second intifada ended after the Sharm el-Sheikh summit of 2005. In attendance were Israeli President Ariel Sharon and the leader of the Palestine Authority, Mahmoud Abbas. As part of the agreement, then Prime Minister Ariel Sharon pledged to withdraw all Israelis from Gaza. Sharon was optimistic that disengagement would lead to peace. After the withdrawal, elections were held and Hamas won. These are the only elections to have ever been held in Gaza. Hamas are generously supported by Iran to wage a proxy war against Israel. In 2012, Mohammed Morsi, a supporter of the Muslim Brotherhood, was elected president of Egypt. During his time in office, he established close ties with Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh and gave Hamas the equipment that allowed them to dig its tunnels that were used after the October 7th attack. In 2013, Morsi was deposed in a military coup, and Egypt closed the border with Gaza. The new government banned the Muslim Brotherhood.
Hamas will be affected negatively by these political developments in Egypt. Hamas is part of the Muslim Brotherhood organization, and Hamas had a very strong and cooperative relationship with the Muslim Brotherhood and with Dr. Morsi over the past year. And the liberal and secular opposition in Egypt was not comfortable with this relationship between the presidency and Hamas, and there has been a media incitement against Hamas and against its intervention in Egyptian internal politics, which might have its negative ramifications for the future relationship between Hamas and the Egyptian people.
In 2014, PhD candidate Abdul-Azim Ahmed wrote an article for the William Temple Foundation on the roles of mosques in Britain.
I arrived just before sunset on a Monday evening at my local mosque, 𝗕𝗹𝗰𝗙𝗄𝗏. The mosque, a former church hall, is packed with people. A survey by The Times found Muslims are one of Britain's most charitable communities. Much of this charity takes place in mosques, with aid organisations such as Islamic Relief raising millions through collections and fundraisers at mosques across the country.
Islamic Relief has been banned by the United Arab Emirates over its links to the Muslim Brotherhood. In 2013, Al-Qaradawi visited Gaza and reasserted the demand that Israel be destroyed.
We are now in Gaza, and praise be to Allah. I have not visited Gaza since 1958. We start our visit again to meet with loved people and to renew our covenant. And we pledge to work to liberate Gaza and all of Palestine. We extend many thanks to the state of Qatar including for their offer to the Arab countries. Qatar supported all of the Arab revolutions of Tunisia, of Egypt, of Libya, of Yemen, and Syria. All of these countries. And it has its role to play in Gaza and Palestine.
In 2021, Ahmed tweeted,
"Has anyone written on the coffee shop as a place of civil society organizing? I'm thinking of the Muslim Brotherhood."
In the Hamas Charter, it states,
"The Islamic resistance movement welcomes every Muslim who embraces its faith, ideology, follows its program, keeps its secrets, and wants to belong to its ranks and carry out the duty. Allah will certainly reward such one."
In 2020, Ahmed was made Secretary General of the Muslim Council of Wales and Deputy Director of the Centre for the Study of Islam in the UK at Cardiff University. In September 2022, al-Qaradawi died. The Muslim Council of Wales released a statement.
Yusuf Al-Qaradawi, born in 1926, passed away yesterday, 26 September 2022. He was a scholar of international repute and a unique and incredibly significant intellectual voice. He sought to bridge the gap between the historic tradition of Islam, represented through 1400 years of writing and reflection, with the challenges of modernity. His writings, scholarship, and activism provided guidance to Muslims globally, and no doubt he will be remembered amongst the scholarly greats of Islam. May Allah have accept his contribution to the Ummah and envelop him in his mercy.
In the Hamas Charter, it states,
"The Islamic resistance movement is one of the wings of Muslim Brotherhood in Palestine. Muslim Brotherhood movement is a universal organization which constitutes the largest Islamic movement in modern times. It is characterized by its deep understanding, accurate comprehension, and its complete embrace of all Islamic concepts of all aspects of life."
In 2015, Ahmed attended a conference on how the Muslim community can engage better in public life, held in Cardiff. Saleem Kidwai, then Secretary General of the Muslim Council of Wales, and Sheik Hammuda also attended, as did Sahar al-Faifi, Regional Director of Muslim Engagement and Development, and for a time, Assistant Secretary General for the Muslim Council of Wales, and Plaid Cymru candidate. In 2013, al-Faifi tweeted,
"And we conveyed to the children of Israel in the scripture that you will surely cause corruption on the earth. Twice, #𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗏.
Children of Israel is commonly understood as referring to Jews. These people have been highly influential within the Welsh government. In September 2023, the Saudi Crown Prince was interviewed by 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 on Fox News.
What would it take for you to agree to normalize relations with Israel?
Well, there is approach from President Biden administration to get to that point. For us, the Palestinian issue is very important. We need to solve that part, and we have a good negotiations continue till now. We gotta see where it will go. We hope that it will reach a place that it will ease the life for the Palestinians and get Israel back, as a player in Middle East.
In 2020, Sahar al-Faifi explained that Saudi Arabia's normalization of relationships with Israel was very dangerous.
Far worse is actually the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So back in the days, it was part of the curriculum, and you get tested on how the Israeli state started, what are the steps that they took, why is it the Palestinian rights to go back, to return, and why are they occupied, and all of that is completely wiped off.
SubhanAllah.
So it's you could say it's a preparation step for further normalization with the Israelis. And again, you're focusing on young people now. A lot of young people rely on this kind of educational curriculum to gain knowledge, but now it's wiped off. So
that's
they
dangerous.
don't now very dangerous. Now you ask a Saudi 14 years old, what is your views on Palestine? I was like, we don't know. They know absolutely nothing. They only rely on YouTube. They only rely on the entertainment. And there's no source of knowledge for them to access. And it's very, very dangerous.
On October the 7th, 2023, Hamas fighters invaded Israel and brutally massacred and tortured its civilians. This was an entirely new form of warfare. Outgunned by Israel, Hamas are waging a propaganda war, giving as much attention as they possibly can to the killing of Gazan civilians while keeping their soldiers protected in tunnels. Dan Burwami writes,
On October 8th, 2023, the morning after Hamas's attack on Israel, I recorded my first video. I had moved to the US only a couple of months earlier, and I had no presence on social media. For 15 years in the Middle East, I'd had to keep a low profile for security reasons. That morning, I was furious. I took my phone, stepped outside the apartment my family and I were renting, and explained how Hamas, and Iran behind it, could not have allowed Saudi Arabia to sign a peace treaty with Israel, something the Saudi Crown Prince had alluded to a week earlier in an interview with Brett Baier on Fox News.
There was no comment from the Muslim Council of Wales after the attacks. In a propaganda effort worthy of Joseph Goebbels, the Muslim Council of Wales busily worked to portray Gazans not as aggressors but as victims. The archetypal deny attack reverse victim offender strategy was employed. On the 14th of October, the Muslim Council of Wales posted on Facebook,
We want to thank everyone who turned out for the emergency demonstration to support Palestine against apartheid in Cardiff last Wednesday.
Natasha Hausdorff explains why the accusation of apartheid is a blood libel.
Apartheid and genocide. Well, like colonialism, ethnic cleansing, occupation, all of the other blood libels that we've heard from the proposition benches this evening. The insidious nature of these allegations is that they take the victims of a crime and they accuse those victims of committing the very crime that was imposed on them. Apartheid is a prime example. Where is there apartheid in this region, ladies and gentlemen? If we just look at the area from the river to the sea, the West Bank, Palestinian-controlled territory. And yes, the Palestinians have self-governance. They have an autonomy after the Oslo Accords established in areas A and B, where that self-governance has meant that part of the world is Jew-free. Judenrein. You've heard that word before somewhere. Jew-free also, as in Gaza, since Israel's withdrawal in 2005. Every Jew was ripped from their homes, even the dead ones were dug up so that they could not be desecrated when that territory was handed over to Palestinian self-governance. There is apartheid, ladies and gentlemen. Herein is another perfect example of complete nonsense that seems to be opium for the masses. Gaza has a border with Egypt, and it is somewhere, unlike everyone who has spoken in this debate, I actually went to in September on the ground in Gaza and inspecting the tunnels that exist under the border between Gaza and the Egyptians. One of them was big enough to drive military-grade vehicles through. There was soot on the walls because of the vehicles that had come backwards and forwards, resupplying Hamas with Iranian military might right under an Egyptian command tower. So I invite anyone who is taken in by this nonsense simply to look at a map. Apartheid, you have heard debunked by those that have grown up in Israel and experienced it, the opportunities that Israeli Arabs have. The lie is perpetrated by infantilizing the Palestinians and ignoring the self-governance that exists in Gaza, in the West Bank, and organizations like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch lie about what the position is. They conflate Israeli Arabs, such as the gentleman who was ejected from this chamber. They conflate Israeli Arabs with those who have self-determination under the autonomy of the Palestinian Authority. But then we come to this obscene allegation of genocide. And yes, the term coined by the Jewish jurist Raphael Lemkin in the aftermath of the Holocaust to provide a legal terminology to the Jewish experience of being targeted because they were Jews for extermination. And when the proposition referred to the definition, they left out two very critical words: as such. This is to do with intentionally targeting a group as such, because of the group that they belong to. That was the Jewish experience in the Holocaust. It was also the experience of Jews on the 7th of October, when those acts that delusional third speaker referred to as heroic deliberately targeted Jews because they were Jews for rape, slaughter, torture, mutilation, and kidnap. If they cannot acknowledge that, they have much bigger problems than the ones that they profess to you this evening. Genocide is a slur being alleged against the real victims of genocide in this case, because it is providing a legal hook. A legal hook. I'm glad actually that there is an opportunity for someone to be heard that can speak about what the ICJ actually found so far in the genocide case. Because unlike the speakers who have been invited this term, including Husain Zumlot, who repeatedly lies about what was found by the International Court of Justice in their provisional measures order, and unfortunately he wasn't challenged when he was here as a guest earlier this term, the ICJ has not found that there is plausible genocide or a risk of plausible genocide or anything of the sort. And I honestly thought that after Joan Donoghue, the former president of the ICJ, went on Hard Talk on the BBC to correct this falsehood, it would stop being repeated, but clearly not in institutions like the Oxford Union. Genocide is simply the latest version of the blood libel that is being propagated against Jews because they are Jews. And it is a blood libel not because it is targeting Jews, but because it is false. It is the falsehoods that have been coming out of the proposition benches this evening that are nothing new, because unfortunately, the oldest hatred, the hatred of the Jews, goes hand in hand with lies about them.
On the 16th of October 2023, Dr. Azim Ahmed wrote a public letter
to civic and political leaders in Wales. The continued occupation of Palestine and the subsequent violence such occupation endears has been witnessed with regret by many communities in Wales. We are aware that the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has asked the Israeli flag to be flown from all government buildings. We, the undersigned, request that such an action be avoided.
The Israeli flag was not flown outside the Senate. Gaza was not occupied. On 18th of October, there was a vigil for the victims of the Al-Ali hospital attack. Several organisations regard the most likely cause of the hospital explosion as being a rocket fired from Gaza. Nevertheless, the protests demand that the countries should stop arming Israel. On Saturday, the 21st of October 2023, there was a March for Palestine organised with the Muslim Association of Britain. Dr. Anas Al-Tikriti, a director of the Muslim Association of Britain, described the mass slaughter and rape of Israeli citizens as a lie. On the 22nd of October, Keir Starmer visited the South Wales Islamic Centre. His office posted on X:
I was grateful to hear from the Muslim community of the South Wales Islamic Centre. I repeated our calls for all hostages to be released, more humanitarian aid to enter Gaza, for the water and power to be switched back on, and a renewed focus on the two-state solution.
On the 24th of October, the Muslim Council of Wales posted a clarification.
South Wales Islamic Centre, statement of clarification on the visit of Keir Starmer. The below statement has been issued by the South Wales Islamic Centre via the Muslim Council of Wales. We at the South Wales Islamic Centre would like to clarify our stance considering the recent visit from Keir Starmer, leader of the opposition and the Labour Party. We acknowledge the serious concerns raised by our communities and we thank you for holding us to account. We recognise that while our intention was to raise the issue of suffering of Palestinians, regrettably, the outcome has put the South Wales Islamic Centre and the wider Muslim community into disrepute. We express our dismay at Keir Starmer's social media post which stated, I was grateful to hear from the Muslim community of the South Wales Islamic Centre. I repeated our calls for all hostages to be released, more humanitarian aid to enter Gaza, for the water and power to be switched back on, and a renewed focus on the two-state solution. We wish to stress Keir Starmer's social media post and images gravely misrepresented our congregants and the nature of the visit. We affirm unequivocally the need for a free Palestine. We implore all those with political authority to uphold international law and to end the occupation of Palestine.
As it states in the Hamas Charter,
Israel will exist and will continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it, just as it obliterated others before it.
Young Welsh Muslims are being drawn into this propaganda war.
Assalamu alaikum. So, mashallah, you know, like iLEAD likes to bring the communities together. Why? We have the shayukhs here, the muftis, the ulama of Cardiff, and not everybody could come, but for those who come, it's a nice chance for them to come, relax, and just be themselves, not have the constant questions asked when they're out normally. We have the mashallah youth here, the iLEAD delegates of past, present, who are just basically networking, getting to know the ulama, and just sharing some time with them. Everybody's eating a mixed platter, mashallah, from Saray. The brothers here are unbelievable. Everybody's happy. And our guest of honor is Sheik Hasan, all the way from London. He came down especially to do a talk for us. And we're very grateful because the subject is very important, Palestine and the future of it. So if you're able to come, I recommend it.
The Palestinians do not have the competence to decide on the fate of Jerusalem without resorting to the Muslims all over the world. This consequently makes it obligatory upon every Muslim wherever he is to defend Jerusalem and Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is an obligation upon all Muslims to participate in defending Jerusalem with their souls, money, and all that they possess. Otherwise, a punishment from Allah shall descend on the whole nation.
The Quran is giving us a blueprint, the map, the predictions, the prophecies of what is going to happen, and the tools that are required by the Muslims in order to deal with terrorism.
Or as Yusuf Al-Qaradawi explains,
الله سلط عليهم طوال التاريخ من يؤدبهم نتيجة إفسادهم. آخر تأديب كان تأديب هتلر، ما فعل بهم، وإن كان مبالغوا في الأمر ما بلغوا، ولكن استطاع أن يعني يوقفهم عند حدودهم، وكان هذا أدبا إلهيا، تأديبا إلهيا، وعقابا قدريا لهؤلاء. والمرة القادمة إن شاء الله ستكون على أيدي المؤمنين.